Good morning. This is the morning message for August the 24th, 2025, here on Following Him, the Disciple Life. The passage we're going to begin our day with is Matthew 1, verse 1. And with this verse, we're going to see Matthew in this rather short sentence imply that Jesus fulfills all of it. It states, the book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Now, one of the things we can see in this brief sentence is we can see some different eras of the Bible. Kind of works its way back historically speaking. Jesus, this is the name that he had while on earth, and from that point onwards. Of course, it was the Greek, Aramaic, and Hebrew equivalent of that name, but there is a reminder of his time on earth, because this was a name that he was going to be given in his incarnation. Christ, in Daniel, so looking at the later part of the Old Testament history, there was this promise of the Messiah. Well, Messiah is just another word for Christ. Now, that doesn't really tell somebody anything if they don't understand those terms. It's another word for anointed one. So when we see Christ, a Greek speaker would have seen, of course, the Greek term there is Christos, would have seen a word that means anointed or anointed one, and same in the Hebrew. But so that part that would touch on like the era of Daniel, the time of the exile, getting towards the close of the Old Testament writings. We see mention of the fact that he's the son of David. And of course, this looks at the time when Israel, was a kingdom. So it looks to when there was sovereignty with them. And even when 10 of the tribes were taken into captivity, Judah, which was the royal tribe after Benjamin lost it under King Saul, Judah, it did remain for some time. So that looks at that era, the time when they still had a crown. And then, of course, we get back into the time of the patriarchs, looking at him as the son of Abraham. But with this too, this kind of, as we work back, that's kind of working back from the first four books of the New Testament. Well, I mean, really the entire New Testament, because from the time he's born onwards, he's called Jesus, or once again the Greek, Aramaic, and Hebrew equivalent thereof. And so we have the New Testament, then working our way back through the Old Testament, all the way back to Genesis there with Abraham. We see him. We see things that will touch on his ministry, because that's some of what Matthew is going to be dealing with quite a bit in his gospel account. But then in introducing these two other figures, with David, the Messiah was going to be the son of David. This is a major key point for identifying Jesus as the anointed one. But also in bringing Abraham in, there's things about the promise made to Abraham that eventually are extended to the Messiah that would send the message. And this will be something that if Matthew's original audience, and Matthew was, the way it's written, it seems to be very much written with the Jewish audience in mind. But if they're thinking back to the promise that's made to Abraham, well, in Abraham, all the families of the earth were going to be blessed. It wasn't just going to be Israel. It was going to be everyone. And of course, we get to the end of the book of Matthew, and Jesus is giving them this teaching about making disciples, followers, learners, imitators for him, of all the nations, of all the peoples. That was what the mission was going to be. And so in introducing Abraham, this introduces those promises, including that the Gentiles would be involved, which would be a revolutionary thing for some of the people to read Matthew. Matthew would be an interesting read for a first century Jew, because there's so much there to show how Jesus fulfilled prophecy. And there are ways that Matthew presents Jesus as like the new Moses, because, the Messiah, this was going to be the prophet like unto Moses that Moses talked about in Deuteronomy 18. But there would also be things there that would run so contrary to how some thought at the time that it might either really cut them to the heart to bring them to faith, or might make them really angry. Some of the greatest writings do that. They either, they get you in your heart, or they get you in your heart in a bad way and make you mad. And Matthew's gospel account would definitely do that. So in that first verse, we see things that touch on so much of biblical history. And there's a reminder in that Jesus fulfilled it all. Thank you for being with me this morning. You have a great day, and shalom.